Hello there, good people, and welcome to It's a Shaw Thing. I'm your host, Rob Shaw. We're talking some fantasy football. You have any questions, email us, fantasy@opensports.com. Well, it's time for the Open Huddle, time to go over every single game across the NFL coming up this weekend. We're going to start off with a couple of slugfests, by the way, so watch out, be creative. Might want to consider benching some guys and putting some guys who are normally on your bench based on matchups. And we start off with an ugly one. Philadelphia has truly struggled recently. This is a team that got in a tie, yeah, believe it or not. So that being said, they couldn't score against Cincinnati. How much success could they have against Baltimore? Donovan McNabb, usually you do start him. If you want him, roll the dice and put him in. Otherwise, you might want to consider other options. Brian Westbrook is definitely not playing at the same level he did last season. He's clearly not 100%. Deshaun Jackson has struggled since the early weeks. Kevin Curtis hasn't come back to 100%. As far as Baltimore, I wouldn't start their rookie quarterback. I would consider starting Willis McGahee. I definitely would start Derek Mason. He's the only one having a great year so far for that team. Next up, Houston at Cleveland. Finally, these teams should actually put up some points, but I do caution you, remember, backup quarterback and a rookie quarterback, both teams will put the ball on the ground. Steve Slayton, Jamal Lewis, both excellent starts this weekend. For Houston, Andre Johnson is a must. Owen Daniels has struggled, same with Kevin Walters, so consider benching them. For Cleveland, Braylon Edwards and Kellen Winslow Jr. should both be starting. San Francisco going against Dallas. This could actually be a shootout as well. Sean Hill could definitely put up some numbers. He's been very impressive in limited time so far. As far as the other guys, well, Frank Gore, I'd start him. Aside from those two, I wouldn't start any of the wide receivers. They seem to be in a rotation right now. For Dallas, I think that you're rather safe this week and going with Tony Romo. He's going against a team that he could definitely put up points against. Marion Barber's coming off a great weekend. You could definitely start him. Terrell Owens, yes. Jason Witten should be 100% this weekend, so he too makes for a fine start. Remember, Miles Austin is out for a couple of weeks. Talking about injuries, Tampa Bay going against Detroit. For Tampa Bay, there is no Ernest Graham for the remainder of the season. Warkdown will be in there. Doesn't mean he's the best of starts, but he will be in there. As far as who else could put up numbers for that team, maybe Antonio Bryan. Not really all that crazy about Tampa Bay. Really, John Gruden's the star on that team. He just finds ways to win. As far as Detroit, you have to like what their rookie's been doing in the running back position. Kevin Smith putting up some pretty good numbers, and Calvin Johnson having some success despite Dante Culpepper being the quarterback of that team. Next up, Minnesota at Jacksonville. Two teams trying to find themselves here. Adrian Peterson is a must start. Bernard Berrien, I'd say, is a must start. Other than that, maybe Visanthe Shonko, but aside from those couple of guys, not much there. For Jacksonville, Matt Jones seems to be healthy this weekend. He could be an all-right start. Garrard has struggled, but he could put up some numbers against his team. And Maurice Jones-Drew, based on the touchdowns alone, should definitely be starting every single week. Next up, Buffalo against Kansas City. Again, these two teams could actually put up some points. Who would have thought of it? But I'll tell you, Buffalo coming off a pretty good performance offensively, at least when it came to the ground attack. Marshawn Lynch is a must start. Lee Evans did squat last weekend, but should be a good start against Kansas City this weekend. I would start him. Trent Edwards also not the worst of options. In fact, I probably like him better than Donovan McNabb at this point. Of all of them, I think I have to go with Tyler Thigpen, the sudden quarterback for the Kansas City Chiefs. Has been great so far. He's been throwing to Mark Bradley, Dwayne Bowe, Tony Gonzalez, and on the ground, back again, Larry Johnson coming off a decent weekend. He should put up some better numbers this upcoming weekend. Next up, New England against Miami. For New England, it's a homecoming for Wes Welker. Wants to prove Miami made a big mistake, as if they don't already know that. So Wes Welker would be a good start. Matt Castle coming off a career performance could be a decent start. Randy Moss could be a good start. Of the running backs, probably Sammy Morris is the one I'd go with. As far as Miami goes, if you have to, Pennington could be thrown out there. Same thing with Ted Ginn Jr. If I had to pick a running back between the two, I'd definitely go with Ronnie Brown over Ricky Williams. Next up, Chicago at St. Louis. Don't expect too much offense here. Matt Forte should be a good start. Steven Jackson not playing in this one, so that means Antonio Pittman, but he's going against a pretty good defense. As far as the passing attack for both teams, Bolger doesn't have Orlando Pace. I would not start him, and I would not start the wide receivers as well, no matter how talented Donnie Avery may be or how good Torrey Holt has been in the past. As far as Chicago's passing attack, Greg Olsen is the only one I consider starting. Kyle Orton, maybe not 100%. We saw it happen last weekend. Might not be the safest of starts for this upcoming weekend. New York Jets against Tennessee. Again, these are two good teams, but this could be an ugly slugfest. Thomas Jones seems to be a decent start because if there's going to be a goal line opportunity, he's usually the one who gets it. Brett Favre, how do you bench him? You know he's inconsistent, but he could also shine at times. Jericho Cotchery, Lavernius Coles, in deep leagues, start both of them. Otherwise, it might be a little tricky because, again, Tennessee, one of the better defenses in the NFL this season. As far as Tennessee, I'd probably start Chris Johnson, maybe not Lendell White against a decent defense from the New York Jets. Their passing attack, Kerry Collins, remember, just 8 touchdowns so far this season. He's a safe play, but he's not going to give you anything all that exciting. Justin Gage, fresh off a big performance, you can consider starting him, and definitely consider at tight end Bo Scaife having a fine season. Next up, Oakland against Denver. For Oakland, Probably wouldn't start anyone on that team at all aside from tight end Zach Miller. I say that every single week. The good news, Darren McFadden is 100% this weekend, although that does not mean he's going to get the starting job, so beware of that. Justin Fargas could actually put up some numbers against Denver, but I probably wouldn't start him anyway. As far as Denver, what to expect there? Well, there's like 3 different running backs. I probably wouldn't start any of them, but if you had to go with one, Peyton Hillis had 2 touchdowns last weekend. Jay Cutler's the man to know, Brandon Marshall, Eddie Royal, and Tony Scheffler. He had a donut last weekend, but I think he's going to be much better this weekend. Next up, New York Giants against Arizona. I will start Kurt Warner, but I will also tell you this. The Giants will put the ball on the ground, limiting the time of possession for Arizona and the quantity of possessions, which means less passing yards for Kurt Warner, less touchdowns perhaps. For the Giants, probably would consider going without Brandon Jacobs. Even if he does play, probably will be limited. Sounds like a great chance to start Derek Ward. Plaxico Burress is a good start. Eli Manning should be a good start in the event that it does become a shootout. Obviously, Kurt Warner, you have to start the #1 quarterback in the NFL this season in fantasy points, and you have to start all of his wide receivers as well, aside from maybe Steve Breast, and you could probably rest him this weekend. The backfield's a little murky these days for Arizona. J.J. Arrington, I keep on saying that, he got not more carries, but it was more effective than Tim Hightower, and apparently Adrian James doesn't want to be there. I would not start any of them. Next up, Washington at Seattle. Clinton Portis is a pretty good start here. Jason Campbell could be a decent start considering all the other slugfests going on this weekend. As far as his receivers, Santana Moss should be all right as well. For Seattle, guys trying to get healthy but wouldn't start them yet. That includes Matt Hasselbeck, Deion Branch, and Bobby Ingram hasn't done much so far this season. As far as Indianapolis going against San Diego, well, that could actually be an interesting one for Indianapolis. I think Joseph Adai could put up some numbers in that one. LaDainian Tomlinson for the Chargers as well, Philip Rivers as well, but at the same time, the Colts are very good. Peyton Manning should be in for a treat. Reggie Wayne is a great start. And Anthony Gonzalez and Marvin Harrison, 2 low-key options that might be pretty good this weekend. Dallas Clark as well. Antonio Gates you have to throw in every single weekend because he is the best at his position. But San Diego should struggle against the Colts. Remember, their defense is much better than it had been earlier in the season. Almost forgot a game. Carolina going against Atlanta. This also could be an ugly slugfest. Jake Delhomme does not deserve to start these days. He struggled immensely. He could come out with 3 touchdowns to Steve Smith, but you just don't know. I would start Steve Smith and D'Angelo Williams having a great year. Jonathan Stewart, probably avoid him this weekend. For Atlanta, Michael Turner should start. Jarius Norwood's not a horrible second option. You could consider having him out there, but you probably look for other guys. Roddy White having a great season. You have to start him. Matt Ryan is going against a very good defense. Only start him if you're in a deep league and don't have any other alternatives. And finally, Monday Night Football. Green Bay against New Orleans, finally. A game that fantasy managers could breathe with. This is one where we should see plenty of points. Ryan Grant should be great. Aaron Rodgers should be able to be in a duel with Drew Brees. The wide receivers, Greg Jennings, Donald Driver, both guys should be in for a treat this weekend for New Orleans. A little ugly in the backfield. We don't know if Reggie Bush is going to play. Deuce McAllister seems not to be playing as much these days. Pierre Thomas has played well. Probably want to avoid all of those guys, but you definitely do want to start Drew Brees. You definitely want to start Lance Moore, and obviously Marcus Colston back to 100%. All those guys should put up some pretty solid numbers. Well, my friends, that's your open huddle for now. If you have any questions, email us, openfantasy@opensports.com.
So you think you can tackle a pro? There's only one way to find out. Click on fantasy@opensports.com.